The reign of the old shogunate is over.
The Japanese islands, they're sort of a bit smaller than like mainland Europe and everything. Have you had to make some changes from the new features that you have to accommodate this? Or?
Yeah, so you're right in scale. I mean, for example, Empire Total War had Europe, had America, had India, and this is just Japan. It, of course, sounds smaller. But what we've done is think of it almost like Japan under a magnifying glass, so it's a lot bigger, and we have over 60 provinces to try and compete in. Just in the small campaign, I think there's 120 turns, which translates to about 30 years, and then in the grand campaign you've got 220 turns, which is about 55 years. So comparatively, over 200 turns, it's just as big as Empire or Napoleon or any game before it. In addition to that, you've got these 9 or 10 different clans that they've got different starting positions, they've got different unit compositions, and you can't even see everything in the game in one turn or in one playthrough. So there's there's literally months of gameplay in there if you want to sort of try and explore everything.
I think many players, among them myself, maybe sort of more familiar with the tactics and the strategy that were used during, say, the Napoleonic era, Clausewitz and stuff. Does that stuff actually sort of differ in medieval Japan?
Yeah, I mean, so to start with, of course, instead of firing gunpowder, you've got these melee combat. So you've got units charging in and actually fighting each other rather than range combat with guns. What happens in the game, though, is at a certain point the Europeans come over from Portugal and Holland, and they offer you gunpowder. So if you like that style of gameplay, you still have the option of doing it. But of course, if you take gunpowder, that means you've got to adopt Christianity, and it means that your citizens may, revolt against you, and you've got that to manage and contend with. But it also means that you've got all these. You can give guns to basically anyone, and they can point and shoot, right? So you've then got lots of low-cost troops that have guns. But we don't want it to be that there's only one right way of playing Shogun 2. So you can completely ignore gunpowder and continue to develop your cavalry and your archers, and then you'll have really strong archer units that can take out gunpowder units, right? So certainly by the end of the game, you're not going to have it that every single clan's got gunpowder. Some may choose to ignore it, and they'll do just as well in other ways. So it's just about options.
I believe, unless I'm mistaken, that both Shogun and Shogun 2 take place during the Sengoku era of Japan. What makes this sort of, because with Europe you've spanned from Rome up to the Napoleonic era, but what makes the Sengoku era so much more interesting than, say, the Tokugawa shogunate? Or
Right, the period we've chosen starts in 1545, and it's just so after the Onin War. So why that's so interesting to us is that there's no clear leader in Japan. There's these all these different clans sort of vying for power, and any one of them could have become shogun, and that's pretty much the perfect total war scenario for us. I mean, it was the same thing in Empire. You've got France and England and all these other countries vying for power, and it's the same kind of thing. So the time period we've chosen, there's lots of interesting units and technologies, and we just really loved it, so that's one we went for.
All right. One of the most interesting features in Empire, one of the best things, was the co-op campaign. Have you introduced some new interesting things there?
Yeah. So of course, Napoleon saw the debut of the drop-in battles and stuff like that. All of that's back in for Shogun 2. In addition, we have a co-op campaign whereby it's not just you and other people on the map that are fighting against you. This is a co-op campaign where you and your friend play the entire campaign together, right? So you have joint missions, you've got joint objectives, and of course that also means that if you're off exploring the map separately, you've got the same line of sight. You can see all the stuff that your friend can see. If you go into a battle and you're just playing against the AI, your friend's welcome to come in and watch any battle that you're in, and of course vice versa. If you want to give them something to do and get them involved, you can actually give them some of your units to control in that battle. So you could say, okay, take control of all of my archers, and if you could stick them up on that hill and attack the enemies that are coming past, and then sneak around the back of the castle and all that kind of stuff. So you can work together in whole new ways.
But it's still just 2 players, right?
That's correct, yeah.
More isn't always better.
That's true.
Shogun is sort of almost like 2 games at once, like Civilization and real-time strategy. How do you sort of balance your focus on these different parts? Sounds rather tricky.
Yeah, that's right. So of course we've got the turn-based campaign where you're talking to other clans and you're making diplomatic options and you're giving your daughter to your ally and all that kind of thing. And then you've got the real-time land and naval battles and sieges as well. So you do all the strategic stuff from a higher level when you're managing your entire clan, and then you go in and you can fight each battle if you choose to. I mean, there's some players that may choose to auto-resolve everything if you don't want to do it. But we've been working on the series for a decade now, and we think we've really sort of polished and refined that experience so that both sides are equally balanced in both enjoyment and strategy.
I have a question from our editor-in-chief.
Sure.
Yes, he has that your series is really a bitch if you want to collect games in alphabetic order. Right. So he's wondering, could you maybe release this as Total War Shogun, and then also re-release all your old games with that nomenclature?
I will ask. One quick fix for this is kind of like a mod. What you can do is you can get the cover and rip it in half and then put the other halves around the other way, and it's like an instant fix for that. But yeah, all right. But the reason we changed the name around is purely because it just kind of makes sense, because our series is Total War, and some people may read Medieval 2 or Empire and not even connect it to being a Total War game. So we really want to sort of raise our brand awareness and just make it more consistent. So every game will be Total War, and then so that's the idea behind it. But yeah, apologies for messing up his game collection.
It's obviously a lot of new things. We've gone through many of them. Are there any really cool new features that you'd like to mention that we haven't touched upon yet?
New features. So you've got the multiplayer aspect of it, where you've got the clans where you can join a clan and compete against that. You've got the single the multiplayer map where you're unlocking different stuff. Different armor and different abilities, different units, all that kind of thing. You've got the leaderboard, you've got the clan leaderboard, you've got the Shogun leaderboard, so the very best people in the world are going to be trying to get to the top of that and be the best Shogun 2 player. We've also redefined what a naval battle is by including coastal battles, so you're fighting with all different rocks and stuff around you, and the siege battles play completely differently. We've got the co-op campaign. There's a ton of features this time. So as you can see, I didn't know where to start with that. So.
Speaking of starting, ending, you're sort of almost close to the circle now, going to Shogun again.
Yeah.
So are you gonna keep circling around this Rome 2 next, or some other eras, or? You might not be able to answer it, but maybe the general philosophy behind how you...
Sure. With Shogun, it was purely that we wanted to make the game we envisioned a decade ago, and it was coming up to the anniversary and all that kind of stuff. The idea for a Total War game is purely to find a scenario where you've got all these warring factions trying to seize control. We have a lot of people ask about Rome 2, we have people ask about Medieval 3 or Empire 2, or all those kind of things. We've got a list of hundreds of different scenarios. We could go into the past even more further than we ever have, or we could do something in the present or the future or in space, or a fantasy game, or have dinosaurs. And so we've got basically this massive long list. It's a wish list, right? So it's just a case of what order we do that list in. But yeah, we're not going to run out of ideas anytime soon, I don't think.